Hey, it's Katy from the Bittersweet Life. If you've ever found yourself smiling while you listen to our stories from Rome, or even tearing up during an interview that hits close to home, maybe you've paused to rethink what it means to live boldly or differently or abroad. If any of these are true, then you already know that this show matters to you. But here's the thing. This show doesn't happen by magic. The Bittersweet Life is powered by listeners just like you. We don't have a big production house behind us. All we have is passion, experience, and a deep love of telling stories and having conversations that resonate. And right now we need your support. Just a few dollars a month, the cost of a cappuccino, can help us keep the episodes coming. To give you more honesty, more adventurous thinking, more connection across the world. So if the Bittersweet Life has ever made you feel seen, or helped you dream, or even kept you company on a long walk or a long flight, join us, support us. Because conversations like these don't happen everywhere, and they only exist if you believe that they should. thebittersweetlife.net/support, or find links to donate in the show notes. Welcome to Rome. This is The Bittersweet Life with Katy Sewell and Tiffany Parks. Hello, this is The Bittersweet Life. I'm Katy Sewell.
I'm Tiffany Parks.
Tiffany in Rome, Katy in Seattle. If you've never listened to the show before, welcome to our program. Every show we do has a topic that we focus on. So when you're looking at the massive quantity of shows, one of my favorite questions to receive from people, and probably one of the most common, is where in the world should I begin? And I think that there are multiple approaches you could take. You could do what a lot of people do. They go back to the very beginning and they plow their way through. Some plow through while listening to the modern day episodes at the same time. You could go, hey, I'm just going to go topic to topic and go through and pick out the topics that are the most interesting to you. Or you can just join us now and, learn along the way. It's interesting because a lot of these conversational shows, while they do have a narrative arc, it's a little looser. Ours actually does have a very distinct narrative arc, I think. Maybe less so in recent years, but especially in the first 4 years of the show. So yeah, maybe the bigger question is, ask yourself, what sort of a podcast listener am I? And if you're like me, where you just sort of listen to podcasts whenever you're doing anything, then maybe you want to go back to the beginning of the show. But today, Tiffany, we're going to be, I have a few questions for you.
Uh-oh.
All right. Let's see. It's actually one question, one major question. Have you ever created or thought about creating a vision board?
I've thought about it. I've definitely thought about it. And I think maybe when I was 16, I might have had one.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that if it was a vision board as much as just like a bulletin board with images that I really liked on it and sort of things that inspired me, things that spoke to me. Like it wasn't specifically like, this is what I want to achieve, and so I want to look at a picture of it. Now, I'm not saying I don't think that's a great idea, because I'm very into that sort of thing. Like I'm open-minded when it comes to that sort of thing, and whether you're writing out your goals or you're doing affirmation. Like I'm open to all of that stuff. But I've never actually done it. I've never actually sat down and been like, I'm going to create a vision board. But I've thought about it.
And what do you think would happen if you did create a vision board? Why do it?
I mean, I think the idea is that those things on there that you are hoping to bring into your life. Let's say it's a beach in Italy. Let's say it's a vineyard. I don't know. Maybe you want to spend more time in Italy. Maybe you live in the States and you want to spend more time in Italy. You have pictures of things that you would like to see or do in Italy. Maybe you want to be an opera singer, and so you have like a photograph of the audience of an opera house, That's what I would have put on my vision board if I'd had one back when I was an aspiring opera singer. I would assume that you would hope to bring those visions into your life so that you would see them in real life.
So do
I
you
don't know.
feel like by seeing them on a vision board would make you feel like more motivated? Is that generally the idea? You would feel more motivated to be like, I would like to have an opera audience looking at me, so I am going to be more motivated to like make this happen somehow.
I don't know if it's about motivation. I think there are schools of thought, and I don't have the right answer.
No,
But
I'm not
from
looking
what
for a right answer. I'm just asking what you think. Like,
I think it's more about the more you see something, the more your subconscious accepts that as a part of your reality. And then when an opportunity crosses your path, you notice it
mm,
instead of turning away or simply not noticing or scoffing and thinking I could, for example, me, like I wanted to move to Italy. Now I didn't have a vision board, but let's pretend I had a vision board of me, sitting in my Roman apartment or walking down the street in Rome, which are definitely things I wrote about. See, I'm more of a verbal person, I think, as opposed to a visual person. So I would
mm-hmm,
write about these things in my diary, and I would write out affirmations. I would even go so far as to like write out imaginary scenes that
mm-hmm,
could be my life. So the idea is that when something happens in your life, and it might just be as simple as me finding myself with no real job, no relationship, no stable home, and, nothing holding me back, that I was able to be like, hey, I could just move to Italy right now. And so
mm-hmm.
it makes you more likely to, I guess, be aware of opportunities or accept that something could be real.
Mm-hmm.
I
Okay.
think that's what it is for me.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. So, I've been reading this book. I'm actually very much hoping to have the author of this book on. She's a local to Seattle. Her name is Therese Houston, and she is probably one of the smartest scientists I know. And she wrote this book recently that is all about brain science. And she's very good. One of the reasons why Therese is such a delight and why I hope to have her on the show, she is so good at taking scientific topics, scientific concepts, and making them something that anybody can understand. So this book is called Sharp: 14 Simple Ways to Improve Your Life with Brain Science. And it has been an absolute delight to read and has given me all sorts of interesting ideas, not just stuff we could talk about on the show, but things to do in my own life. However, this is something I was like, I have to bring this to you. So there's a chapter that's called Accomplish More. And the very beginning of this chapter, it says, what doesn't work? And I made a note in
Hmm.
my notebook about this. Don't make a vision board.
Oh, really?
Focusing on the ideal outcome can actually demotivate you.
Interesting.
Picturing a rosy future drops your blood pressure, which settles the drive for hard work.
Huh.
It can also put you at the risk of depression. Now, I can read you a little bit more. Let's see. Here's from the actual book itself. That was just the notes that I wrote down. But researchers have learned that if you imagine an ideal, positive future for yourself, you lose your drive. Participants in one study who pictured an ideal outcome felt less energized and enthusiastic about their goal than those who imagined a neutral outcome. When people fantasized about a rosy future, their blood pressure also immediately dropped. And blood pressure is a reliable indicator of how energized and enthusiastic you feel. Of course, she does a side note that's like, we normally think of low blood pressure as like the good thing because that's what we want. And she's like, yes, in overall health, you don't want to have high blood pressure. But in the short term, an increase in blood pressure is desirable because it shows you that the body is amping up and being prepared to work on something. What's particularly troubling about this result is that it was the participants who said that they wanted the goal the most. Those who had the greatest need for achievement, who had the biggest drop in blood pressure when they imagined a perfect future. So, and then here, let me do the vision board specifically. Vision boards could also have another unpleasant side effect down the road. You're putting yourself at risk for depression. Psychologists have found that positive fantasies about the future can make you feel good and reduce depressive feelings in the present. But if you're fantasizing about impressive accomplishments, that can actually lead to more depressive symptoms later. So the takeaway, she says at the end of this, is clear. If it's something you need to work toward, don't picture the work as being complete.
That's really interesting because I feel like all of the self-help books I've ever read, specifically like goal-oriented self-help books, like I'm not someone who, I mean, luckily haven't suffered with depression or anxiety or anything like that. So I haven't read that type of self-help book. But I've definitely read like how to achieve your goals and like how to whatever, and that's the type of self-help book that I was drawn to when I was younger. And almost all of them, they didn't all say like do a vision board or anything, but so many of them were like, focus on the outcome. Why? The why behind the why, and then the why of that, and then the why of that, and then the why of that. Like, why do you want to make more money? Why do because then I'll be able to travel. Well, why do you want to travel? Well, because then I'll see things. Well, why do you want to see things? I mean, this was I just remember reading this in so many books, and it's like, seems like that's the opposite.
It is the opposite. And I mean, I love the fact that scientists are studying this kind of stuff. I mean, one of the cool things about this book is that she was looking at tons and tons of studies, but she was trying to find like the ones she actually put into the book are the ones that she felt like actually had practical application to your life, But I think it's cool that the scientists are even trying to study like, well, what actually motivates you. But kind of what you were talking about before, where you were saying, I was writing about what I wanted in the steps and all that stuff. So in the first do category about what does work, according to science, is kind of what you did, sort of, I would say, is, and these are just my notes, this is not what she wrote in the book, picture the process of moving toward the goal. Visualization works, but not if you're picturing the final realization. It says the right dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex lights up in the planning, and that, leaning into what you should do and not what you want to do, will help you accomplish your goals.
That makes sense. Like actually do the work.
Yeah, actually
and think about what it entails.
Right, like taking it in steps. So she was like saying the most effective goals are difficult but achievable. Like kind of what you did, you were imagining your way into the scene, but I imagine, I don't know, maybe you can tell me I'm wrong, but that you also had to take like steps along the way to make it occur.
Oh, I had a whole notebook. I had a notebook that I still have it somewhere. And it just was called the Rome Plan. Mm-hmm. And it was all the things. And every time something came up in my head of like, oh, I need to think about this. I need to think about insurance. I need to think about like what kind of job I could get. I need to think about paperwork or, and I just wrote everything there. And you think about an apartment and, how does this work? How does that work? So I was just doing a lot of digging and a lot of searching and as much as I could. Obviously, it's not that easy to plan when you're so far away. And especially back in those days when the internet was still
right,
kind of not in its infancy, but definitely in its adolescence.
Yeah, I mean, partly like you kind of throwing yourself into the pool was part of the motivation to like, oh God.
It was, but like I didn't
figure this out.
I don't think I could. I mean, maybe some people could. I'm not the kind of person who could buy, like we love to say, oh, I just moved here without a plan. It kind of. I don't think that I could have been like, I'm moving to Rome tomorrow or 5 days. I'm just going to buy a ticket and go. I wouldn't have been comfortable doing that. Now, did my plans all work out exactly as I thought they would? Obviously not. But I think I can only speak for myself. I needed to have a period of planning. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I would not have felt like I could possibly do it.
This is what she says the most effective goals are. So rather than having your vision board, you think of a goal, right? She said the most effective goals are when they're difficult but achievable, when they are set publicly and not privately.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
So that doesn't mean you have to like parade it all over social media, I don't think. But I think it means that your friends should at least know that you're trying to do this thing, or your spouse should know, or your partner should know. But
your close friends.
She also says, if you feel like you'll have better accountability, stick it up on social media. Oh, and then she said, I guess this wouldn't be the case in every situation, but if you can set it as a group goal, you'll often be more successful also.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not just you alone, but it's you and your team at work, or it's you and your family. People who set harder goals were more likely to achieve them also than people who
Well,
set easier goals.
that's encouraging.
Hmm. But it kind of goes against that idea of, it doesn't really go against the idea of taking things piece by piece. But, sometimes we think of like, well, today I'll just, I'll walk a half a mile, but maybe it's like the goal is not just the half a mile today. The goal is like the 5 miles tomorrow, but you're doing the half a mile today. I don't know. That's sort of a,
I wonder how much of it is like the personality of a person who would make a difficult goal versus the personality of the person who's going to make an easy goal.
hmm
Because if you're the type of person who sets yourself a difficult goal, are you also an overachiever? Maybe.
I don't think of
It's
myself as an overachiever, and I definitely set difficult goals for myself. I am definitely not an overachiever. I don't think.
But you're also not a lazy person.
That's true. But what's an overachiever, really?
I don't know. An overachiever is someone who, they always gets straight A's in school and sets super high standards for themselves, sometimes at their own detriment.
Has 16 books out already. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
At our age.
Has like three jobs, or not three jobs, but they have a lot of stuff going on and have to excel at everything. They're usually like an oldest child.
I mean, I suppose when it comes to the vision board, it can be sort of public in the sense that, if it's hanging in your house, people who come by can look at it and be like, what's this about? But again, it gets into like, this is my idealized future, in which case you've already attained it. It's on your vision board. So why work toward it anymore?
Why work toward it? Well, yeah, I mean, I have heard that, a lot of people talk about this, and I wonder how this correlates with what she's saying, but the body doesn't differentiate from what I've learned. Okay, I'm not an expert on this, but I've learned that the body cannot differentiate, or is it the brain? I can't remember if it's the brain or the body. That's probably a big
It's probably the
a big
brain.
difference.
It's probably the brain and the body because they're
Probably the
connected.
brain.
They're connected.
It cannot differentiate between something that you have done and something that you have only imagined that you've done. For example, and the example that they give are musicians. And they have musicians, they did some experiments, and they had these people who were not, gosh, I can't remember the details of this experiment, but I think they were not musicians. But they were asked to practice the piano, like they were taught, like, I guess, basic piano. And they were asked to practice a certain number of minutes a day. And then another group was asked to like visualize or close their eyes and imagine that they were practicing. But like not just, an image of yourself playing the piano, whatever, but like actually think about the notes, think about the fingers. And there was pretty much no difference in the progress that these two groups made. They all made like the same progress, even though one group was physically playing with their own physical fingers and the other group was just using their mind. So I do think there is something there. And I don't know that science can explain it yet. I don't know.
Well,
But
here is something right here. Why would visualizing your rosy future, this is from the book again, by the way, this is not just me speaking off the top of my head. Why would visualizing your rosy future in all of its glorious detail backfire? One theory is that by positively fantasizing about your future, you mentally experience those juicy rewards now, rather than needing to wait until you've done all the work. The neuroscience supports this view. Researchers have found that brain areas typically associated with high levels of reward are activated when you mentally stimulate a positive future. It makes you feel amazing in the moment, but since you're already feeling what you want to feel, why would you work so hard to actually get there?
okay.
Hmm?
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate on this one.
Okay. This is brain science, but go ahead.
I know, but this is my point doesn't really have anything to do with brain science.
Okay.
Science is always changing. Let's not forget. It's always discovering new stuff.
True, true.
This is more of a philosophical question than a scientific question.
Okay.
If you want to achieve a goal because of how it will make you feel to achieve that goal, right? Because why else would you want to achieve a goal? It's about how it makes you feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why achieve it at all if you can get just as much reward as imagining it.
Well,
No, but I mean, for real, for real, I really, I ask myself this, I don't know the answer. I ask myself this question as well. Like, I'm like, is it really important that I achieve this? If I'm happy and if I feel just as good, like, okay, here's my example of this. Back when I had a day job, all I could think about, all I could dream about was spending the entire day working on my book and being able to write my book.
right.
And the only way that I saw that that was a possibility was if I published several more books and made tons of money writing, and that that was supporting me and I didn't have to do anything else. Then COVID happened, and I was not working, and I was getting a salary, a little less than the regular salary, but it was enough to live on. And I haven't been very good at writing lately, but at that time I was like, I was so excited to have the opportunity to write all day that that's what I was doing. For a second, I had this little mini epiphany, and I was like, I think about the goal so much, this goal of publishing a second book, publishing a third book, publishing a fourth book, becoming a bestseller. I think about this. I think that's what I want. But what if all I really want is to spend the day writing? Well, I'm doing that. I'm doing that right now.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm doing it. Does it matter if I publish another book ever? If what I really want to do, if the point of publishing a book is that I get to write all day?
Yeah. I mean, technically, no, you don't have to publish another book.
No, I don't.
And I
I
think
mean,
the only reason it would be that you had to publish another book is if it would be as if I said, Tiffany, I know you're never going to get another book published. Let's just say I know that. Okay.
please don't.
I know.
Please don't say that.
It's not true and I don't actually know anything. But what I'm saying is, like, if it were possible to know, would it completely demotivate you from doing it all? Like, would you not want to write all day if you knew it was never going to get out into the wider world?
It would definitely take a lot of the motivation away. Yeah. If I'm
But
being honest, yes.
and the enjoyment?
Yeah, because I think as a writer, we want people to read what we write, right? You
Sure.
write because you think you have something to say. Just like a singer, you sing because you love it, but you also sing because you want people to hear you. You want to communicate with people. So it's hard to just to think, okay, this is going to be one-sided and no one's ever going to read this. I mean, people do it. Emily Dickinson, did it her whole life.
Yep.
But it would be hard for me to think, okay, if it were possible to know the future, it would be hard to stay motivated. For
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, to go back to your earlier question, if you can feel all the joyous reward of doing something without actually having to do it, then why do it? My answer to that would be, the why do you do it is because for me, I think it's because of the process. It's because of like what you learn and how you change and how your brain changes over the course of the process of doing it. That's what I would say. Because it's not just like the reward of, let's say if I sat here and I visualized, just to use your example, having a book published, major accolades, going on a book tour, and let's say that felt extremely rewarding while I was picturing it, it still wouldn't like forge in you the other qualities that come from doing something that's very hard and takes a lot of endurance and self-motivation. And I don't know, all the other like intangible things that come from doing these hard things.
It's kind of a really wonderful example of why AI is totally going to ruin the whole world. Just one of the many examples. Because when you were saying that, I was thinking, yeah, like there's so many things now that people are not having to do. And they're not having to do that hard work.
Right. Right.
And we don't know now what that's gonna lead to in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Even just on like a very practical, like brain level.
Yeah.
You never ever, like how many times have we all had to write like a really difficult email, whether it was personal or professional, and like just the challenge of that and the digging deep. Like, are people gonna know how to do that in the future? And if not, what's gonna be missing from their lives?
Well, I'm sure I've said this on the show before too. Like, I don't feel like necessarily having it depends on what you do with your time. Like having more free time is only valuable if you do something with that free time that makes you feel energetic. I'm not saying like don't watch TV all night if that's what you want to do, because, we're all tired and we want to relax. But, it's like just the other day I was talking to Derek and I was saying, well, and he's like, yeah, but I just can't. I forget what he was talking about, but he's like, I can just never get to this one thing. And I said, yeah, or you could just like not watch as much TV in the night and like you could get to that thing. Like, we could be doing yard work at night up until 9 o'clock when the sun is finally gone and the yard would look better than it does. We're just choosing not to do that. We're choosing to do other stuff. It's not that we don't have the time to do it. We're just not doing it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I do think a certain amount of leisure is necessary.
Oh, of course.
For the human soul.
Definitely. I'm not arguing against that, but I'm just saying it's not, we have like us as human beings, in the first world probably have more leisure time than ever in history right now. And I would argue that, do we always use it well? Even use it in a relaxing manner half the time?
Well, scrolling on
not really
on social media is not relaxing. I can tell you that.
No, it's not. Well, before we run out of time, let me tell you one more thing about this that can, if you're thinking about achieving a goal, that might be helpful. So, another important thing to do, rather than make your vision board as you get started on something, is to monitor your progress along the way. So
that's hard for me.
I know. It says sharing your progress with another person can help, or write your progress down. She says, don't just think about it. There's something about writing what you've already done that helps you, rather than your brain being like, I've already done this, now I'm going to move on to that. And then she says, this is just from my notes, this is not from her book. Focus on how much you've done, not on how much more there is to do. Focusing on the 1% you've completed is more motivating than focusing on the 99% that's remaining. However, once you cross the halfway point, then shift your focus to what's left.
Oh, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of something I heard on a podcast I used to listen to years ago. I think it's called The Happiness Project.
Yes.
Somebody wrote in, it wasn't one of the two hosts, but somebody wrote into them and they shared it, that this woman she says she has a to-do list. Mm-hmm. She says, I don't make a to-do list. I make a to-do list. As in, ta-da!
That's nice.
And she's like, I write at the end of every day, I write out every single thing that I accomplished.
Oh, wow. Every day.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I always liked that idea back then.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's kind of the similar thing. It's like, write down what you've already done, not what you need to do. Not what you need to do tomorrow.
Because see, I love checking things off my to-do list. I make a to-do list every morning.
But maybe that's part of it, is like the checks are you saying, this is what I've
love
done.
to see that page full of lines. It just makes me feel so good at the end of the day.
Yeah, I could see that. So, all right, well, our takeaway, vision boards don't work.
Okay, scrapped. I'm glad I never wasted the time making one.
And my sister has a vision board, my sister Sarah. So sorry, Sarah, it's not going to work.
Well, I don't know. Sarah has had a pretty successful life.
She has, but I would argue it's not because she has a vision board.
Maybe.
Maybe not. Tiffany's shrugging her shoulders on this one.
Well, maybe it's, again, the same sort of thing I was saying before about the highly motivated people tend to make more difficult goals for themselves. Maybe she's a very positive person and therefore she made a vision board. It's not because of the vision board that she's successful, but it's because she's the type of person who would make a vision board that she's successful.
Well, she can weigh in herself if she wants to, but I would say it's more about what you were talking about at the beginning of the episode, which is laying out your intentions. What you intend, or even more than that, if I'm remembering correctly.
What you want to convince yourself is possible.
Well, I mean, I think even more than that, I feel like a lot of her vision board was like, what do I want more of in my life? Like, what is missing is more. Mm-hmm. So in that way, I think it kind of goes with your intention idea. I am just trying to come up with an example. Like, I would intend this year to try to meet more and new friends or something like that. It's like stating an intention. And I don't know how an intention would be different than like, say, a goal. But
who knows? I don't know.
But we don't have time for that.
We don't have time to go into that. We'll do that on the New Year's resolution episode.
So if you have Go to Rome with Katy and Tiffany on your vision board right now, it has to get off that board and into your real life. And this is your chance to do it.
Open your email. Put in our email. What is our email address? bittersweetlifepodcast@gmail.com.
Yes. Send us
and
an
write
email.
to us and tell us you want to come.
Yes. Time is running out. The trip kicks off in October, but time for signing up is running out and running out quick. So, yeah, open that email, get it off your to-do list, get it off your vision board. Write to us, bittersweetlifepodcast@gmail.com. It is not going to work as long as it's on that board because you feel like you've already gone. And let me tell you, you have not. Although some of you listening have gone. And see, doesn't it feel good? You're like, no, I did that. It was great. It was amazing. One of our guests that's coming this particular upcoming year just said today, you've been sharing with her some possibilities of what we're going to do. And you also shared with her some of the very specialized self-guided walking tours that we give the guests that come on this trip so that if they're not with us, because there's, if you come on this trip, you're only with us in the morning. We're doing a walking tour with you in the morning. The rest of the day is yours to do with as you please. But we do provide self-guided walking tours in case you want to take yourself on a little adventure. So you were sharing these with her. And she said, and this sort of fits with the topic for me. She said, I love to plan and prepare. For me, 1/3 of the fun is the planning, 1/3 the experience, and 1/3 the remembering. And I thought that was lovely.
It's lovely. It's not true for me. I hate the planning with my own trip. I hate it. I hate it so much.
You liked planning this trip, though. So maybe
Because
it's like
different.
if you don't like planning for yourself, but you like
I
planning.
don't like planning for myself. I love planning for other people, and I plan people's trips all the time. Not just our special trip, but other people's little itineraries and stuff. And I love doing that. I don't like doing it for myself.
Maybe it's because you do it for work that you don't like doing it for yourself.
Perhaps.
Anyway, I love that. I love that she's diving in. And if we believe the brain science in this book, it means she's already kind of like on the trip in a certain way already.
Yeah, well, her experience has already started.
It's already started, yeah. But the thing is, it's not just on a vision board. She's actually going on the trip. Like, she's going to see us in October.
She's actually coming.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, so if it interests you, do write us an email, bittersweetlifepodcast@gmail.com. You can also visit our website, thebittersweetlife.net, and find information there. And we'll leave it there. And until next time, this is The Bittersweet Life. I'm Katy Sewell.
I'm Tiffany Parks.
Join us again. Bye. If you love this show, support it. For as little as $5 every month, you get to hear 2 bonus episodes and even say hello during upcoming meetups online. That's every month for as little as $5. Visit thebittersweetlife.net and click support to explore ways to pitch in to keep this show you love on the air.